Hello, Fallen Dragonite here again, and it's time for another miniature arcade review. Now then, I wasn't sure if I was going to go back to the Arcade Classics series before, after my initial reviews, because there really wasn't a whole lot of them that actually interest me. But then they came out with this. Yes, it is the Spy Hunter machine. And Spy Hunter is a very interesting game because it was basically kind of like driving a spy car. It was modeled after racing games of the time, but you could actually shoot your opponent. You can actually shoot enemy cars to get high score. You can actually drive the boat, although later games like the PS2 games show that the car actually transforms into the boat. But other than that, Spy Hunter was a fairly decent game. It was one of Midway's more popular games up until Mortal Kombat came out. Now then, as always, we're going to take a look at the stickers. Now, I have the marquee sticker right here, and it looks fairly accurate, but it looks kind of stretched out on the Arcade Classics machine. Not terrible, but it does the job. But what isn't correct is pretty much the shape of the arcade cabinet, because let me just bring up the picture here. That is what the original arcade cabinet is supposed to look like. Yeah, it's supposed to be a lot more boxy. It's supposed to have a steering wheel. It's supposed to have a floor pedal. But then again, this is Arcade Classics. Like, I use the same mold for all these arcade machines, so I'm not going to knock it against them. The control panel has somewhat faux details that kind of look like the control panel on the original arcade machine. The panel art is actually pretty accurate, although they did have to cut it out to match the shape of the machine. And again, as I said, no faux floor pedal. But then again, given the size of the machine, they kind of had to make some concessions for how this thing's supposed to look. Of course, the side stickers just have Spy Hunter, but there isn't any additional detail that were shown on the original cabinet. Now then, before we boot this up, let's get some comparisons here, shall we? Let's bring out my Savage Worlds Freddy Krueger, and he looks sort of okay. Looks like he actually is to scale, maybe a little taller than it should be. Let's check out my Rat Trap. He looks like he's fairly in scale. Looks like he actually fits in scale with that. Let's take another look. I got my Revoltech Annette from the Queensblade series. Disclaimer, I will not review Queensblade figures on this channel because of their gimmick. If you don't know what the gimmick is, you're probably too young to be watching this. Anyway, she's kind of taller than the machine should be. Not terrible, could just be the base, but it works decently in display at least. So then, without further ado, we're going to get to the part you probably want me to do already, and that is actually play this thing. Now that's going to be a little bit of an issue, because there were some complaints about how this version of the game runs. I'll show you much as I can, but let's boot this thing up. This is the original intro, but it's a little lower resolution. It's supposed to actually replicate the arcade look, but it doesn't play exactly like the arcade. First off, no accelerator. Instead, you're constantly going forward. So you gotta use left and right on the joystick to steer. You got your machine gun, and I accidentally shot a civilian there. Shot another. It's kind of hard to do this behind the camera. You press up twice to accelerate. Press down to decelerate. Now at Spy Hunter, there is a timer up here on the top of the screen that counts down, and you can keep respawning so long as that timer is still active. Once the timer runs out, you'll have a catch of lives depending on how many points you've scored up until that point. Usually between 0 and 2, I usually find. But there is also one big problem with the controls. Not just the fact that you have to press up twice in order to speed up, and I'm having a really hard time actually doing this behind the camera, but as you know, Spy Hunter, you're supposed to have sub-weapons. Oh, there's a helicopter. Gotta avoid that. Wait, there we go. So you go into your trucks to get sub-weapons, and yeah, I haven't been able to figure out how to swap your weapons, but it seems like if you pick up a weapon, you're stuck with it, which is horrifically bad to some purists, because I hear a lot of people say that they would rather just have like a weapon swap button, or at least a secondary fire button to use their sub-weapon. Okay, now we have the oil slick. The only way to get rid of it is to, well, die. Sounds nice. Kinda like the music on this thing. Okay, that sound means I earned an extra life. Oopsie. Okay, we'll see how far we can get in the game. And there's another issue. You might have heard the audio kind of crackled there for a bit. It seems like at certain points, if the soundtrack's running long enough, it'll actually just start to have a few distortions here and there. Okay, here we go. Here's the boat section, if we can get to it. As you can see, I have 2 lives. And here we go to the boat section. This control's about the same. And yeah, if you have your sub-weapons by this point, you're going to have them stuck in your boat. Now then, only enemy boats show up on this, so it's not as difficult as as there's no traffic you have to avoid, but you still have to avoid islands and whatnot. Anyway, that's enough of that. First chance I get, I'm gonna... There we go. And I'm not sure you can tell, but there is a little screen tearing when it transitions from boat to car. Okay, icy roads ahead. Here's where things are going to get a little difficult because it keeps sliding around. Oh. Slid into the side of the road when I was trying to avoid the truck. Now, in the original arcade game, you could actually call the trucks. In this version, you can't. But then again, I think the NES version, you weren't able to call the trucks either. You just had to watch out for them and drive into them when they showed up. And I'm dead. Could get a lot further if I wasn't playing behind a camera. Yeah, you can enter your initials. And it's this, unlike a lot of the other machines, will actually save your high scores. Yeah, if I turn this off and turn it back on, it's going to save the high score that I had last time. So basically, all the high scores on this are mine. It will not have high scores when you first get it. It won't have a high score. You have to actually play to get high scores on this thing. So it's a nice way to have challenge your friends to see if they can beat your score. Now then, I'm not sure, but there's always been this reset button on the back of these machines. I wonder if that will reset the score. Might try it. Not sure if I would. Anyway, that is the Arcade Classics Spy Hunter. Honestly, I like this. It's a nice little vertical scrolling shooter. Doesn't feel like a driving game, but again, it's kind of like the concessions that have to be made for this scale. Now then, weapon swapping is an issue. Some people are going to have a problem with it. I personally don't really mind too much, but I know a lot of people are going to have a lot of issues with not being able to switch your weapons. And in fact, I feel like you could just, if they had just had to just press up and hold fire to swap your weapons, that would actually work out, especially considering you have to press up twice in order to shift gears, which seems a little excessive just to press up twice, whereas just pressing up once would have been enough, and you have to just press down once in order to downshift. In fact, there's only 2 buttons, and yet we've seen Arcade Classics machines with 3. So I don't see why there wasn't a weapon swap or a secondary weapon button. But again, that is just minor gripes. I personally don't care because it still plays nice. It's a really good machine. But again, it's something that a lot of purists who probably played the original arcade game are probably going to take issue with. So it's just something I have to bring up. I have to just say, just so you know what you're getting into if you get this device. And the fact that, unlike a lot of the other machines I've looked at, this thing will actually save your high scores even after you shut it off. It's actually a pretty nice feature that they added to this. And I wonder how many of the other machines released since those initial ones I reviewed have the score save feature. And I actually am interested to see what other machines they actually release for this. Especially since it looks like they're now working with more Midway games, because we saw Mortal Kombat. I'm not going to touch that because I don't really see the point of that version of the machine, but maybe we'll see a Robotron machine sometime in the near future. Who knows? Maybe they'll do Golden Axe eventually. Because I would really like to see Golden Axe, or hell, as I said before, make Donkey Kong out of one of these machines. But that is my review, and I hope to see you guys again next video. Bye!